Welcome, captains, to the shaky sands of Port Royal. Today we are talking about the titular game, Port Royal by Firelock Games. I just got my Kickstarter copy in the mail. I'm so excited to get into this game. Just to be perfectly transparent, I was a play tester for it, and I do think it is one of the most fun and accessible games out there in terms of skirmish level combat that is fun and rewarding. If you're curious about Port Royal, like the actual overview of gameplay, I have a battle report and some rules discussions here on the channel. I will link those to the playlist down below for Port Royal that I have. But in those videos, I asked if people had questions or things that I could do to make getting into the game easier, and I did have a comment requesting how to build lists, or as they're called in this game, companies. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now, I will say before I jump into it, if you're interested in saving a little bit of coin when it comes to this, please consider using any of the affiliate links in my description down below. They will tell you exactly how much money they save you from places like Miniature Market, Noble Knight Games, Element Games, a ton of different places. So wherever works best for you in terms of shipping, please consider doing that because it gives a tip to the channel. But on to the main discussion. We're going to crack open this book and head over to page 37, which is all about building a company. Now, I have the rule book here on screen. However, I'm going to treat this mostly as an audio medium. I will be reading this to you, so you don't have to actually sit and watch every detail of it. But how to create a company really starts, of course, by choosing a faction. There are several factions in Port Royal that you can choose from. We have the French Buccaneers, the Spanish Guardacosta, Carib Raiders, Maroons, Forces of the Crowns, the Dutch Capers, and today we're going to be doing the Jamaican Pirates. Now, I'm only going to show off one of these because I don't want to, reveal the whole book. Go support Firelock Games. But they're all going to look essentially like the Jamaican Pirates one in terms of, we'll go over to that page here. You have your faction rules, the officers you can choose from in charge, as well as the crew. These are the actual people you can hire to be a part of your group. There's a note here on equipment, which I'll get to, and some special rules that have to do with campaign play. So step 1, choose your faction. We're going to go with Jamaican Pirates. Step 2, choose your characters. Each player has 30 pieces to spend on characters, equipment, and starting experiences below. All chosen characters and equipment must be from the selected faction list. If a character is marked with an asterisk, at least one character of that type must be included in the company. All other characters are optional. Each company has the following regulations. So these are the actual hard limits to creating a company. A company cannot have more than 10 total characters. So there's your hard cap, 10. Must always include at least one officer and any number of crew members. It may never include more than 5 of any individual character type, so you can't hyper spam something. You cannot have more officer characters than crew characters, and characters with a number in parentheses next to their type are limited to a maximum of that number in the parentheses. So if it says deckhand 2, you can only have 2 of those characters, for example. Once you've selected all of your characters, fill out your company roster with all of the characters and their stats. Now, I did mine a little bit separately, but I will just show off here at the end. They do have these really nice character sheets that you can just quickly scan and print out. They're also all available on their website, and it's just to make your own quick reference sheets for all the different stats and stuff like that for your characters. It's really not a big deal when it comes to one-off games, but faction play, or campaign play, I should say, is really where this game shines. So just kind of keep that in mind. There is a designer's note here at the bottom. They kind of started the game balance around 30 pieces, which is your points essentially. But they do tell you, you can basically just crank that up to 40 or 50, whatever you want to do, but 30 is kind of like a typical game. Now the next step is to equip our characters. So you have to actually buy the characters themselves and then go and equip them. Now what I will say is, for the purposes of making maths very easy, we'll skip over here to the pirate section. You can see some of the stuff that we talked about. Officers, there's a captain with a star next to it. You have to have a captain of your crew. No questions asked. These 4 entries here are your officers. So you have to have fewer officers in general than the rest of the crew. And in the bottom right here, right page at the bottom, is your equipment that you have access to, broken into common and rare. Talk about that in a second. And from here, you're just going to choose your various characters, and you can see there's a point cost related to each of them. So an old Buccaneer cost 5 pieces. Your captain cost 6 pieces, for example. Now, what's cool about this is that the characters have differentiating costs, but the weapons and equipment always cost 1. So it's not like you're trying to balance all the minutia of these weapons and stuff like that. It's just you pick a guy, and then their equipment costs 1 no matter what. So we go back here to step 3. In this step, the remaining pieces are spent to give the characters in your company weapons and equipment. By default, characters start with no weapons or equipment. Weapons and equipment are worth 1 piece, regardless of rarity. The weapons and equipment available to a company are listed in each faction section. Their options will be split into 2 categories: common and rare. A company may only be equipped with a total of 3 rare items, but they can gain more when playing a campaign. A character can only carry a single weapon or piece of equipment with the quote two-handed quote straight, and may carry up to 3 of any other type of weapon or equipment. Once all weapons and equipment have been purchased, they must be assigned to characters, and you add those to your character roster sheet. Basically, you assign the weapons to the guy. So we'll go back over here to our Jamaican Pirates thing. We have their equipment section in the bottom left of the 42nd page. Common equipment are the things they're going to be pretty much ubiquitous to any historical minis, okay? Musket, blunderbuss, pistol, sword, axe, lance, interestingly, dagger, climbing gear, which allows you to basically traverse terrain, and medicines to recoup health. Everyone in this roster has access to those things. Rare equipment, meaning you can only pick 3 maximum per list, are going to be things like the rapier, so a better sword, plug bayonets, grenados, stink pots, and fire pots. Now, those are the actual rules of building your list, but I wanted to kind of take a step back and give a few guidelines and ideas that kind of go through my head when it comes to how to best equip a list. Really simply put, the best thing you can do is just match what a character is already good at with the equipment that allows them to do that thing. So if we go back down to our list here, right, let's say I wanted to have a guy with a musket. Okay, I'm going to look at all of these stats. We'll just take the basic crew here for an example. You'll see they all have fight and shoot stats. Well, in Port Royal, whenever you make an attack or do a test, you roll a number of d10s and you're trying to equal or beat that number. That is to say that the lower the stat, the better they are at doing that thing, because it's easier to roll equal to or higher. So with our musket example, I'm going to look here. I'm going to say, well, a lot of these guys shoot on 7s, but the old Buccaneer, he shoots and saves on a 6. Notably better than all of his other crew counterparts. Not only that, he has a great rule called Marksman, which allows you to spend an additional action to basically make the shot more accurate. It's like he's taking a breath. These are fantastic bonuses. Now, there's bonuses all over the place for different types of armies and what they may or may not be good at. But those are the kinds of things that I look at. If I have a model with a musket, I'm going to make it an old Buccaneer because he's best at using the musket. Same thing goes for melee weapons, right? The Sea Dogs are incredible with a fight of 6. Not so good at shooting, but they have Brawler, another special rule that makes them better in combat. So give them an axe, get them up there into combat. When it comes to specialty equipment like climbing gear or medicines, I more or less look for characters that I want to be aggressive, right? If I'm going to give you climbing gear, your job is to get up somewhere hard to get and then start messing things up. So I'm going to put that on someone who has, a good fight value. Remember that you can equip multiple weapons, so you could have a Sea Dog that has a pistol and an axe and just have him try to do his best at both, of course. Syncing up what a character is naturally good at between their stats and their keywords to the equipment that they bring is very fluid. It makes a lot of sense. It's a great way to start building your list. I always try to include at least a dude or two who is super cheap and does nothing except like distract the opponent, right? It's a cheap guy who can run to the objective while everybody else is trying to kill people. A cheap guy who can jump into combat to give you a bonus for outnumbering your enemy, that kind of stuff. Now, coming back to our how to create a company section, the last little bits here is section 4, add starting experience. Now, this really is for campaign play. As you gain experience, your characters can unlock special skills. Those are actually relayed to you as officer advancement options in your special rules section of your faction page. Basically, for this, I don't want to talk about that because it really is as simple as spending points that equal to experience. 2 points of XP for each piece spent. I don't want to go too much into that because this is not about the campaign system. That's going to be a whole video in and of itself because it's very cool. I want to talk about the aftermath sequence and stuff. So we're going to skip that for now. And also, honestly, they give you like 5 models per side in the starter set. You don't need to worry about adding experience to anybody. Just get dudes on the table to start for sure. And the last section here is calculate infamy rating. So infamy is how they basically balance games between forces that start to differentiate themselves, right? If one guy's on a winning streak and he just keeps getting better and better gear and more guys and stuff like that, his infamy rating will be higher than playing a new player. And the reason for that is it gives the new player a bonus. The bigger the disparity in infamy, the more bonuses the quote-unquote weaker of the players or the forces gets. It's like a gang rating in Necromunda or something like that. Really, it's really simple. You're just going to add up the total number of pieces that were spent and also any free gear that you get, and that gives you your infamy rating. So to start, right, we're starting at 30 pieces. We've spent 30 pieces in all our stuff. Your infamy rating to begin should be around 30. We have an exception that we're going to go through here in an example, but that's all it is. It's just basically rating up how good your warband is to try and add a little bit of modicum of balance to games going forward. So with all that out of the way, let's walk through the list that I put together for my Jamaican Pirates. And I already took this over to the Port Royal Discord, Firelock Games Discord, Port Royal channel, and I got some good feedback on it, so I hope that you enjoy it. It certainly works well with the models that you're given in the core set. So I wrote this up very quickly on an Excel doc. So we have our character, their cost, the loadout they have, and then the total, which is not the same. Remember, characters cost different amounts, but equipment always costs 1. So for example, we have our captain, because we're required to take a captain. Remember, he had the star next to his name. He costs 6 pieces. We've given him a pistol and a rapier. However, I'm going to scoot down here to the bottom. One of the faction rules that is very relevant for the Jamaican Pirates is that every officer that you add to the list gets 1 weapon for free. So we've added this rapier, but there's no cost associated with it. So 6 pieces plus the 1 for his pistol equals 7. Even though he's actually valued at 8, it only costs 7. Same thing for the quartermaster. He costs 4. I gave him a musket for free. He's an officer, so he costs 4. For the old buccaneer, I took one of them, gave him also a musket and an axe because he's going to be sort of my middle of the road guy. He's going to run up afterwards and try and pick a fight after. He's had a chance to shoot a few good rounds into people. And because he's not an officer, he doesn't get anything for free, so he costs 5. He has 2 pieces on him, or 2 things of equipment on him, so he costs a total of 7. That's the example. I have 2 sea dogs, one with an axe and grenades, the other with a sword, and a landsman with a sword. That is my cheap guy who was there only to run up and either give the Scottie Pippen assist to somebody else doing the work, or to go and rush an objective that isn't being covered. Now, the reason I brought up that whole section on infamy rating is because my starting infamy is actually 32. Remember, it's the amount of pieces that you spent to make your list and any free equipment you get. In this example, I got 2 free pieces of equipment, the musket on the quartermaster and the rapier on the captain. So my total, when I'm putting it all together, they still count towards my infamy rating. So it's 32. And that's all there is to it. As you can see, it's very simple maths. The cost of the dude and how many things are on them. And then there are some minutia rules about deducting free items and that kind of stuff from there. But it is truly that simple. Now, we built this list, of course, for the Jamaican Pirates. I can tell you the one faction that I played the most during playtesting is the Spanish Guardacosta. I also played Blood and Plunder, their full army game, and my army is themed around the Spanish Guardacosta for that. So it was kind of like a one-to-one, like, oh, I already kind of know what they're vibing for when it comes to that, and translates really well. But in Port Royal, I adore them because their special faction rule is essentially once per game, the captain goes like, Santiago, and everybody gets to either run or do an action for free. It's really cool. And that just kind of changes up gameplay quite a bit. All of the factions, I will say, as I'm flipping through the book off screen here, they all have at least 2 faction rules, and some of them have to do with gameplay, And there's usually another rule that has more to do with like the mechanical side of things. So either, example, free weapons for your officers, black powder weapons, maybe you don't need to reload every single time or something like that. What is this one? Yeah, anytime a black powder weapon is used by a character in this company, it always gains an additional reload marker for the character raiders. That's a mechanical inconvenience to signify that they don't have a whole lot of black powder weapons, which I like the toss-up. You know, the idea of faction rules can get very bloated in some other games, and I like the duality of like, this is one that matters when you're playing the game, and this is more of a mechanical thing that's meant to incentivize or inconvenience you, whatever the flavor may be. My point in this video is simply to show how easy it is to make a company for Port Royal. If you have further questions about these things, please leave them in the comments down below. And if there's a specific video you would like explaining any of the rules, please also leave that as well. In the next video, I think I'm going to tackle the campaign section, which will have a lot more to do with the infamy rating we talked about. We'll talk about gaining experience and the aftermath sequences of games to make sure that you're telling the story, kind of a thing. Port Royal is a fantastic game. I cannot stress that enough. The guys over at Firelock Games are wonderful to work with. If you want to support an American company that makes a fantastic miniatures game that is both accessible and a lot of fun, they have the most hoppin' booth at Adepticon every year, and they're just incredibly kind people to work with. There's a lot of game companies out there where you love the product, but you don't root for the company. This is one where I love both. So thank you so much for watching, Captains. Let me know what you'd like to learn about next, and I will catch you in my next Port Royal video. Happy wargaming.